10 New York restaurants of the 1960s. In 1960s New York, a restaurant reservation could carry the weight of a family name, a Park Avenue address, or a line in a gossip column. At lunch, society women studied one another across white tablecloths. At dinner, producers watched Broadway crowds gather after curtain call. Editors, politicians, bankers, actors, writers, and heiresses all moved through the same city, yet each group had its own room, its own tables, and its own rules. Some restaurants were French and formal, others were theatrical, clubby, artistic, or built around the new language of corporate power. Together, they formed a map of mid-century Manhattan. Who had influence, who wanted it, and who was close enough to be noticed. These are 10 New York restaurants that define the glamour, gossip, and social theater of the 1960s. La Côte Basque. La Côte Basque opened in 1958 and quickly became one of Manhattan's great society lunchrooms. By the 1960s, it was tied to Truman Capote's circle of swans. Babe Paley, Slim Keith, C.Z. Guest, Gloria Guinness, and Marella Anelli. They were rich, photographed, beautifully dressed, and powerful in a way that depended on taste, access, marriage, and reputation. Babe Paley was married to William S. Paley, the chairman of CBS. Marella Anelli belonged to the Fiat dynasty. C.Z. Guest was painted by Diego Rivera and photographed by Cecil Beaton. Slim Keith had moved through Hollywood and high society long before Capote turned her world into material. La Côte Basque served Basque French food in a room where the flowers, tables, and seating mattered. The menu could include lobster bisque, escargots, sweetbreads, quenelles in lobster sauce, roast duckling, venison in red wine sauce, tarte tatin, and crème brûlée. It was food with ceremony, rich sauces, polished service, and the kind of lunch that made leisure look highly organized. Lunch there was never just lunch. It was a daily display of rank, friendship, rivalry, and self-possession. Then came Capote's 1975 Esquire story, La Côte Basque, 1965. It was fiction, but the disguises were thin. Readers recognized the world immediately. The story exposed adultery, vanity, cruelty, and betrayal drawn from the society women who had trusted him. Several of Capote's closest friends cut him off. Babe Paley, already gravely ill, was said to have been deeply hurt. What had once been whispered at lunch was now printed for the public. That is why La Côte Basque became legendary. Its real story was social danger, the polished table, the perfect dress, the private secret, and the writer listening too closely. The Colony. The Colony belonged to an older New York. Opened in 1919, it became one of Manhattan's defining cafe society restaurants. By the 1960s, the room carried decades of social memory. Park Avenue women, Fifth Avenue families, diplomats, financiers, titled Europeans, and people who understood the language of a good table. Its owner, Jean Cavallero, knew that seating was power. A central table could flatter, a poor table could sting. The Colony operated with a kind of social precision that made every placement feel intentional. The food had the character of an elegant private house. The menu was known for sophisticated luncheon dishes such as chicken hash served inside a toasted bread box, tiny soft-shell crabs, cold Senegalese soup, billy bye, and carefully prepared vegetables. It was not flashy food. It was polished, composed, and socially correct. This was the New York of gloves, formal lunches, French menus, head waiters, and women who dressed for midday as carefully as others dressed for evening. Conversations moved from marriages to inheritances, from European trips to debutante seasons, from divorces to who had been invited where. The restaurant had glamour, but it also had rules. It favored people who already belonged. It recognized old names, old money, and old habits. By the end of the 1960s, that world was weakening. Downtown culture was rising, media power was growing. Youth, money, and celebrity were reshaping Manhattan's social map. The Colony closed in 1971. Its closing felt like the end of a particular dining code. The old Café Society lunchroom, where a woman's table could say almost everything about her place in the city. Le Pavillon. Le Pavillon gave New York its French dining education. Its roots began at the 1939 New York World's Fair, where the French Pavilion introduced many Americans to a level of cuisine and service that felt almost ceremonial. Henri Soulet carried that prestige into Manhattan and opened Le Pavillon in 1941. By the 1950s and 1960s, it was widely considered the most influential French restaurant in America. Soulet was famous, feared, and exacting. He acted as host, judge, and gatekeeper. At Le Pavillon, the seating, service, manners, and menu all formed part of the experience. Guests came to eat, but also to prove they understood the room. The food belonged to the high French tradition: caviar molosol, jambon de Bayonne, little neck clams, smoked salmon, foie gras with truffles, shellfish, sauces, soufflés, fish, game, and formal meat dishes. A meal there could feel almost ceremonial because every detail announced authority. The clientele included bankers, diplomats, publishers, society figures, and Americans who wanted dinner to feel touched by Paris. The restaurant's influence spread through New York. La Caravelle, La Grenouille, Lutèce, La Côte Basque, and many other French rooms existed in the atmosphere Le Pavillon helped create. It closed in 1972, but by then it had already shaped the city. Le Pavillon taught New York that a restaurant could become an authority. Lutèce. Lutèce opened in 1961 in a townhouse at 249 East 50th Street. Founded by André Surmain, with André Soltner as chef, it gave New York another kind of French restaurant, smaller, warmer, and deeply personal. The name came from Lutetia, the ancient Roman name for Paris. Everything about the restaurant suggested a carefully held vision of France: elegant, intimate, serious about food, and free from unnecessary spectacle. Soltner was born in Alsace, and his cooking brought regional French tradition into a refined Manhattan setting. Lutèce became especially famous for his Alsatian onion tart, a warm, savory dish that regulars remembered with unusual devotion. The restaurant also stood for classic French sauces, seasonal cooking, and dishes prepared with the patience of a chef who treated consistency as part of the experience. Lutèce attracted serious diners, critics, celebrities, politicians, and society figures. Over time, it became one of the most admired restaurants in America. Its appeal came from care. Le Pavillon could feel imperial. Lutèce felt cherished. Guests remembered the warmth of the room, the consistency of the cooking, and the sense that the people running it had placed their own pride into every service. In a city filled with restaurants built on status, Lutèce earned affection. The Four Seasons. The Four Seasons looked like modern New York learning to admire itself. It opened in 1959 inside the Seagram Building at 99 East 52nd Street. The building, designed by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, with Philip Johnson, was already one of the great monuments of corporate modernism: bronze, glass, proportion, and Park Avenue confidence. Philip Johnson designed the restaurant interiors. The pool room became famous for its square pool of water, shimmering beneath a calm architectural space. The grill room became one of the great rooms of business Manhattan. The Four Seasons used modern materials, seasonal trees, water, scale, and design. Its glamour came from architecture. The food could be as deliberate as the room: herbed lobster parfait, clams with truffles and green onions, beef marrow with cream and bouillon, Dover sole, fresh wild mushrooms, seasonal menus, and even cotton candy. An unexpected fine dining signature that gave the restaurant a playful note beneath all that corporate seriousness. The restaurant also changed with the calendar. Its name was literal. Menus and decorative details followed spring, summer, autumn, and winter, turning the room itself into part of the performance. During the 1960s, executives, publishers, architects, designers, and cultural figures gathered there. Later, the grill room would become closely tied to the phrase power lunch. But the groundwork was already visible in this decade. The Four Seasons gave corporate New York a stage. Lunch became architecture, status, and strategy under one very elegant roof. 21 Club. The 21 Club carried Prohibition legend into mid-century power dining. Located at 21 West 52nd Street, it began as a speakeasy and became one of New York's most famous restaurants. The painted jockey figures above the entrance made it instantly recognizable. Inside, the atmosphere was dark, clubby, and packed with memorabilia. Toys, model planes, sports objects, and gifts from famous regulars crowded the ceiling and walls. Private rooms added to the feeling that important conversations were happening just out of view. Its hidden wine cellar became part of the legend. During Prohibition, the restaurant developed elaborate methods of concealing liquor during raids. Long after Prohibition ended, that story remained central to its appeal. By the 1960s, 21 attracted presidents, politicians, actors, athletes, publishers, Broadway figures, and business leaders. It had the confidence of a place that understood power and protected it. The food fit the clubby mood: steak tartare, chicken hash, Dover sole, steaks, martinis, cream spinach, hash browns, and the famous 21 burger with brown sauce. This was food for long lunches, confidential dinners, and men who wanted the room to feel like a private club. At 21, dining felt like access. To sit there was to feel close to the machinery of New York. Sardi's. Sardi's was Broadway in restaurant form. It opened at its West 44th Street location in 1927 and became the theater district's most famous dining room. Its walls were covered with caricatures of actors, playwrights, producers, critics, composers, and entertainers. To be drawn for Sardi's meant you had entered Broadway folklore. By the 1960s, the restaurant was woven into the rhythm of theater life. People came before shows, after opening nights, after reviews, after triumphs, and after failures. The menu had the comforting feel of theater district dining: cannelloni au gratin, spinach cannelloni, meatballs, prosciutto with melon, shrimp, smoked salmon, and dishes that could carry actors, producers, and critics through the charged hours before or after a performance. The decade gave Broadway Camelot, Hello, Dolly, Fiddler on the Roof, Cabaret, and Man of La Mancha. Sardi sat close to that energy, collecting the faces and anxieties of the people who made the stage world run. A critic's review could change the mood of a table. A producer could scan the room and know who mattered that week. An actor could look at the caricatures and imagine joining them. Sardi's turned dinner into part of the drama. The Russian Tea Room. The Russian Tea Room gave New York dining an artistic mood. Founded in 1927 by members of the Russian Imperial Ballet community, it stood near Carnegie Hall and became a gathering place for performers, musicians, dancers, actors, writers, critics, and patrons of the arts. By the 1960s, it was already one of the city's most recognizable cultural restaurants. Its name carried an entire atmosphere: caviar, blini, borscht, tea, vodka, ballet, concert nights, winter coats, and old-world romance. The food deepened that mythology: caviar on buckwheat, blini, borscht, smoked sturgeon, chicken Kiev, veal pajarski, tea sandwiches, vodka, and elaborate desserts. It was the kind of menu that made dinner feel connected to ballet, exile, theater, and memory. The Russian tea room had a different energy from the French society rooms. It belonged to performance culture: Carnegie Hall, theater people, literary conversation, music critics, actors between engagements, and patrons who wanted to be near the arts. Its Russian identity, filtered through Manhattan, gave it a distinct mythology. For mid-century New York, it represented the city's cultural appetite. Money mattered, certainly, but so did talent, taste, and proximity to the stage. El Morocco. El Morocco was one of New York's great supper club legends. Opened in the 1930s by John Perona, it became famous for celebrity clientele, society nights, photographers, gossip column mentions, and its unmistakable zebra-striped banquettes. By the 1960s, the club's peak years had already entered New York mythology, but the image remained powerful. Movie stars, debutantes, international names, dinner jackets, dancing, flashbulbs, and tables arranged for maximum visibility. The food matched the late-night mood: pâté de foie gras de Strasbourg, roast beef, baked Alaska flambe, champagne, cocktails, and rich supper club dishes suited to dancing, flirtation, and flashbulbs. El Morocco belonged to evening New York. It was a place for entrances, clothes, music, and public display. The zebra pattern became one of the great visual signatures of mid-century nightlife. It gave the room instant identity, which mattered in a world where society photographs could turn a night out into a lasting image. Before the age of Studio 54, El Morocco represented a more formal kind of nightlife: dressed, photographed, exclusive, and carefully watched. Its legend is inseparable from the idea of old cafe society after dark. Elaine's opened in 1963 on the Upper East Side and announced a different New York. Elaine Kaufman built a restaurant around writers, journalists, actors, filmmakers, comedians, critics, and media figures. The food rarely received the kind of reverence given to the great French rooms. The people were the draw. Still, the food helped define the room's casual, conversational character. Plates of pasta, veal parmigiana, squid salad, calamari, fried zucchini, and Italian-American neighborhood dishes that gave the literary crowd something to gather around while they argued, drank, joked, and watched one another. Elaine herself controlled the room. She was hostess, protector, judge, and gatekeeper. She knew who deserved a good table, who needed encouragement, who should be ignored, and who had become part of the nightly cast. The restaurant became associated with names like Norman Mailer, Gay Talese, George Plimpton, Woody Allen, and many figures from publishing, journalism, film, and television. Elaine's mattered because it showed where New York's status was heading. Old society still had its lunchrooms, French restaurants still held culinary authority, yet writers, columnists, actors, and media personalities were gaining their own kind of social power. A person could become important through a book, a column, a screenplay, a feud, a joke, or a reputation for being interesting after midnight. Elaine's became a factory of reputations. Together, these 10 restaurants reveal a city of separate rooms, society lunches at La Côte Basque and the Colony, French authority at Le Pavillon and Lutèce, corporate power at the Four Seasons, clubby legend at 21, Broadway energy at Sardi's, artistic conversation at the Russian Tea Room, supper club glamour at El Morocco, and literary New York at Elaine's. Some closed, some changed, yet their names still carry the atmosphere of vanished Manhattan. In 1960s New York, the most revealing stories were often told by where someone sat.
Thank you everyone so much for watching Cultured Elegance. If you'd love to support the channel, you can become a channel member today by clicking join at the bottom of the screen. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.